Essay 1 is coming up quickly. I want to review the steps necessary to get through the rough draft. Remember all those planning worksheets that you've been doing? Now you're going to look back over those and choose a specific goal that you want to focus on 2021. You may have several, but prioritize and decide which one you want to work on. Then decide what is standing in your way of that goal. And don't forget that you need to choose something that you have the power to overcome. So then you need to find some credible sources to support you in this work. You can look at the support tools folder that I have for you on the course content page in the Blackboard shell. Has all sorts of useful information about sources. Or you can go directly to the LibGuides on the UAPTC website. These are all hot linked, so you can click on those to get directly to that. But this has a research process section that might help you with evaluating sources. If you just want to cut to the chase and make sure that you're using something that's credible, you can use the library databases, and the most popular one is this one, ProQuest, which is kind of like an online encyclopedia, real helpful. Or you can find a book from the library. Just use the search bar that's on the main library page, just like you'd use a Google search. Put in the idea that you're looking for, let's just say procrastination, and this search will tell you all the books that are available on that subject in our library. And by all means, even before you start any of these things, use the librarians. You'll find this tab on their website. There's also a phone number that you can call, but they are happy to help you with your process. Among all those choices, you're going to choose 5 sources. Now, you're not going to use all of those for your paper, but I want to see 5 sources, so in case you have some that aren't credible, we can work through and find at least one to help you with your paper. Here's a link that also just a little reminder about checking on them to make sure they're all credible. Okay, so for the first thing, you're going to be submitting those 5 sources, and I want you to do a citation for each one. If you're not familiar from Comp 1 on how to do a citation in MLA8 formatting, generally here's how it looks. You can use a citation tool to help you with this, something like Citation Machine. I have some examples in that support folder that I talked about. But generally, here's what it looks like. Almost always it starts with the author's name, the title of the article, the magazine or quarterly that it comes from, what volume it is, a date. This one in particular came from the database, so it has that database name there. That's why that's there. And then I accessed it today, so that's why it has that date there. Okay, now you won't have something like this if it's not from the database, so don't worry about that. But as a general rule, always the author's name of the book or article comes first. Okay? So after you've done your reading, you've exercised your ideas, then you want to create a thesis. And here is an example. I used earlier the example of procrastination. So if I'm writing a paper about procrastination, this is a possible example for a strong thesis. Procrastination is often considered a form of inaction or laziness, but what if it can be considered a problem of establishing priority? I plan to overcome this obstacle by looking at it differently and then by taking action based on my discovery. So this is what I'm building my paper upon. If this is my thesis statement, I'm going to have to show, talk a little bit about why I think this. I'm going to have to talk about why I'm using this as my option. And remember, I'm borrowing this idea from these experts up here who've looked at this idea about procrastination. And then I'm going to talk about how that's going to help me overcome what I've seen previously as an obstacle. And then how I can take action based on that. Okay, so a thesis should be a statement, it should be strong, it should lay the foundation for your entire paper. And I have a link here to talk more about that. The next step, and a very useful one I think, is to create even just a broad outline of what you're trying to do in this paper and what the goal for each paragraph is. So I'm going to say in mine, in the introduction, I know that I need a hook, something to draw my reader in. I don't know exactly what it's going to be yet, but I know that I need that hook, and I know that I'm going to include that thesis that I just showed you on that previous page. Then paragraph 2 is going to talk about, well, why is it that I have this issue with procrastination? What are some examples so my audience can know and become familiar with what I'm dealing with? Then I'm going to talk about my thesis a little more deeply. How is it that I can look at procrastination differently? How is it that I can see it as a matter of prioritizing? And then in paragraph 4, I'm going to talk about how I'm going to work on this issue. And in paragraph 5, I'm going to show how I think that these ideas that I've found might apply to someone else's situation. Okay, now this is rough. This is how I want to start my paper. But as I begin actually writing, I might find that, oh, I think this needs to go up here, or I need to do 2 paragraphs about this, and this is going to be a shorter paragraph. This is just a guide to get you started, to get your juices flowing. I find this real helpful for organization. So don't skip this step. Even if it's broad and you end up changing it quite a bit, it's a good way to lay the groundwork for your paper. A few more things we've discussed in class that I want you to consider, and these again are in that folder, the support tools folder. Before you write, you want to consider your audience and your voice. You want to maybe, as I mentioned earlier, reformat your paragraphs if you need to. You want to start making good use of these transition words. You'll notice these again, these are all hyperlinked so you can see examples of how these work. This is something I think is really important. If you can give yourself plenty of time so that you could leave your paper for a couple of days, don't even look at it, and then when you go back you'll see things that you didn't see the first time. And I find that one of the best ways, in fact the way I usually grade your paper, is to read the papers aloud. So if you can go back, read your paper aloud after not looking at it for a couple of days, you'll see things that you didn't catch the first time. I wanted to show you a few pieces of an MLA8 formatted student paper that I received last spring when we had this very similar prompt. So this is a paper in MLA8 format. I did take out her name here, but your name will go here, your last name, and the page number. You'll create a header for that over here. Then you have my name, the name of the course, and then the date when you do that. She has her title centered. She included a picture, which is absolutely fine. Her paper is about her trying to break into the fashion world. Then she sets up, my goal is to become, so she sets off what her goal is and what it is standing in her way in this opening paragraph. Now this is not the whole thing, it's just a piece of it, but I just wanted to give you an idea what a correctly formatted paper looks like. As I dig down a little further into her paper, you'll see she references a work here, and she names the author Roxane Rivera. And then when she refers to Rivera, again down here, you'll notice she just puts her last name and the page number. That's what that 46 is. 46. So this is what's known as an in-text citation. It's when you've referenced a work and then you tell the author's name and the page number where you got that work. All right. So then on your works cited page, you'll notice I can skim down. These are in alphabetical order. She actually has several sources on this page. I see Rivera Roxane. So now I know exactly that this is the book that she got her information from. Now she references these other things throughout her paper, but this is the one. So when you saw that Rivera 46, that's what that's referring to here. So anything on this page has to be referenced back in the document itself, in the body of the paper. That's why it's called an in-text citation here, but the full citation goes on the works cited page, which is a completely separate page. Oop, I didn't see this mistake here. This should just say works cited and not works cited page. Okay, now for most of you, this page for this paper will just have one entry. If you want to have more, great. They do go in alphabetical order. Finally, before you submit that rough draft on Blackboard, are you clear about every slide that I've gone through here? Do all of those things make sense? Do you have any questions about plagiarism? That's addressed on your syllabus. Be sure you're perfectly clear. If you're quoting something and you want to know, oh, I don't know if I've done this right, be sure and ask me before you submit the paper. Have you met the word count? You want to be sure that I won't grade it if it's less than half of the word count. And have you found the right place to submit on Blackboard? If you have questions about these things, before you submit, please shoot me an email and let's make sure that you get it all correct. All right. And then I will, as quickly as possible, get you feedback, audio feedback on these rough draft submissions so that you can begin refining them for your final copy.